What's up, guys? Welcome back to the early read NBA playoff preview. Going to attack it solo today. Go through 6 of the 8 playoff series because I'm recording this on Thursday afternoon. We are still waiting for Friday's 8 seed play-in game. So maybe I'll touch on a little bit of how I see those, but really just talk about those series, how I like to bet the NBA playoffs and the such. If you listen to this podcast and that's how you know me, college sports is really where I focus a lot of my attention. But if you know me from Twitter or you follow me there, you know I'm a diehard Brooklyn Nets fan. They are most certainly not in the playoffs this season, but I do follow the NBA, not necessarily from a betting perspective, but I do keep a keen eye on it. And, playoffs are great. I think I've argued for years, and it's starting to manifest that I think the NBA is in honestly a golden age of talent, and we're starting to see now with the league. Now there's less super teams. There are 2 dominant teams this year, but there's more parity, and I think it makes for a really good product come playoff time. So really excited for this year's playoffs and getting into it. So let's break down, I guess, like from the macro, just take from the top. I think when it comes to power rating an NBA team come playoff time versus your regular season, of course, you're going to have your priors, and there's still a body of work that's included when it comes to setting a series price or something like that. But as these games progress and you get more into playoff basketball, there's a pretty big delineation, and you see a lot of teams that were very successful in the regular season. It doesn't translate as much to the postseason. I'm not saying that I'm betting on this team, but like a team like the Phoenix Suns continue to have a pretty lofty playoff rating, or championship rating, I should say, because they have bucket getters. They have proven commodities in the postseason. Devin Booker has been to a finals. Kevin Durant is one of the greatest players of this generation. Whereas Minnesota, far less proven. Rudy Gobert struggled in the postseason. Karl Anthony Towns, where does he fit into that series? So you see, when you put that all together, yeah, the Timberwolves had a great regular season, the best defense in the league, and the Suns floundered all year. But now that we're here, and now it's a best of 7, and the game is going to change, well, now you have the Suns as favorites to win that first round series against the Timberwolves, despite being on the road, being the 6th seed against the 3 seed Timberwolves. So it does change quite a bit, and I think you do need to remove not all, some of what you saw through the first 82 games of the regular season. I think you do need to take a step back, though, and look at it from a playoff perspective. And, we could get into a few of those. Styles do make fights. I think that, some teams are just a bad matchup, and I keep harping on that Suns matchup, but the Suns won all 3 of the regular season matchups against the Timberwolves. The Nuggets won all 4 matchups against the Lakers. Again, the regular season is different than the playoffs, but if a team is winning every single game, and in the Suns' case by double digits, all of them, that's a little predictive of where this might be going come postseason. Whereas, there's injuries at times, there's guys sitting out, it's a long season. Maybe the regular season series isn't as indicative in some cases. Again, it's a case-by-case scenario. Excuse me. I also think coaching plays a pretty prominent factor in this. There are some coaches that are known for their playoff success. Look at Eric Spoelstra. The guy continues to turn water into wine. And, Joe Mazzulla on the Boston side. And Boston, I think, is going to be an overarching theme of this podcast, but possibly not spoken about that directly, because I'm just kind of talking first round series for the most part. But Joe Mazzulla last year in the postseason kind of exposed, because the Celtics, they have proven playoff contributors, but they don't have like that ace in the hole. Tatum hasn't risen to the status of a guy like Kevin Durant, for example, or even Devin Booker. So I think that there's some question, and of course, Booker and Durant together far outweighs what the Celtics have in terms of proven playoff pedigree. Mazzulla, it was his first year as the head coach last year. He takes over for Ime Udoka and was pantsed by Eric Spoelstra. And even, as those series throughout the last year's postseason run for Boston, Atlanta was able to grab a few and extend that series. Philly, with Joel Embiid on a bum wheel, was able to extend that series with Doc Rivers as their head coach. And we're going to talk about Doc Rivers in a little bit. Mazzulla was kind of exposed, and we've seen this even in the Celtics' dominant season. I mean, Boston is clearly the number 1 team if you're power rating in the regular season. But I think in the postseason, gap between Boston and Denver is going to close quite a bit because Denver has that proven playoff pedigree. Boston, even this series, we've seen some fourth quarter struggles out of them. They didn't lose much, but when they did, a lot of it revolved around their inability to close out games. So I do wonder, is that going to happen again? Boston, I'm looking right at it, minus 220 to win the East. They are the NBA title favorites. They are shorter NBA title odds. I mean, Boston, to me, especially with their path to the finals, the clear favorite to win it all. They're plus 145 to win it all. But if you get to a series, even with home court for Boston against Denver, are you confidently taking Boston in that series? That's the real question. So I think it's something that we're going to discuss throughout this, but coaching is going to play a serious role in this playoff run. So I think last thing, you got to be quick to adjust, and markets are going to swing pretty aggressively as well. I'll say this on totals as well. There's sometimes that you're going to see that the pace in certain, or let me rephrase, sorry. The market may be baked into their priors, and you might be onto something by watching the game. Maybe the pace is a little bit slower, and the opening total in game one, for example, does not have to mean that I believe this way, but the opening total in game one of Lakers Nuggets is 224. But you bet the under in game one because you think the game is going to be a little bit slower. Maybe it'll be efficient offense by both teams, but you think the game is going to be a little bit slower. But you see the pace is dumb slow and the games drag out, and it's more of a race to like the hundreds. And, you see that this total is landing at 212, but you're going to see that total in game two might open something like 222 and a half, a slight adjustment down, but it might not be picking up on the fact that this series is going to be a battle between two teams that want to slow down the pace, and it wants to be a defensive minded affair. And then by the time this series drags out, let's say it goes 5-6 games, the closing total in game five might be 216 and a half. It just keeps going down and down and down. So by using your eyes and using your basketball intuition, you might be able to pick up on certain strategies that are not necessarily being adjusted as swiftly in the betting market. But you, the watcher, the viewer, you can maybe pick up on those things. And again, some things are going to be varying styles. I think it's more of you got to look at the macro sense of a game and how this series is playing out. The same goes for player props as well. This one, markets seem to pick up pretty quickly on now, but you'll see rotation shrink come playoff time. If it's going to shrink, and you see that the big man on Team X, let's call it, just because I was watching the play-in game, but if Jonas Valanciunas gets played off the floor, maybe it's just worth it to take his unders because he doesn't fit in a certain series. I know the Pelicans might not make the playoffs, but that's someone, usually centers that don't fit inside a certain series and the opposing team kind of targets him over and over again. That's something you could look at. Maybe it's a bench player that you can see is continuing to get run and getting more and more usage, that, the coach has found something with this rotation in the postseason that, again, is different than the regular season. Look at Miami last year, Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin. Those guys came on strong, but they also kept up their production across multiple series. So you could pick up on these things by watching, checking the box score. You're going to see height in the media availability and kind of a magnifying lens on quotes. You can maybe pick up on certain things there as well. So these are all just like different kind of things in the toolbox that I like to work with during playoff runs, just kind of using your eyes, especially with totals. I would say game spreads, you're usually going to get a pretty clear injuries, but pretty steady market, throughout the series. Totals, maybe those don't pick up as much on how the series is playing out in front of your eyes. So there's something to keep an eye on. Before I get to the series preview, I mean, this is just overarching, but if you're talking big picture NBA Finals, you would say right now it looks like it's going to be Denver versus Boston. There's going to be injuries. There's already a handful of injuries that are seemingly paving the way for certain teams, but it seems like it's in every sport. It's almost like a blanket statement, but injuries are going to likely determine several series. Giannis is going to miss at least game one, probably several more. Embiid's banged up. Jimmy Butler's now hurt for the last play-in game. injuries are going to play a role. They always do. And again, you need to be quick to react to those if you want to try and jump on some things, but just be prepared for injuries playing a role. And also, if you're betting props in a game, like if someone gets hurt in game 2, looking ahead to game 3, who's going to eat up those minutes and stuff like that. Definitely things to keep an eye on. But yeah, let's talk some playoff series here. I'm going to start in the Western Conference. Thunder, really quick on them. I will say that if the Thunder play the Kings, I would lean towards the Kings in like a series spread outcome. I would take the Kings like plus 1.5 games, plus 2.5 games at a reasonable price. Maybe over 5.5 games. I think that you're going to get a decent price. I think this is more a play against the Thunder. This is their first playoff series in this iteration of the Thunder. Is there a bit of a change in attitude? Maybe the team rises up to it, but I'm willing. And again, this is completely contingent on the Kings winning the play-in game against the Zionless Pelicans on Friday. I think that you can see the Kings extend this series as I just pull up their season series. But I know that Malik Monk might be back at some point in the series. I doubt it. Kevin Huerter's out. But I think that if you look at, trying to bring up the season series here. They did split the season series. Also, Domantas Sabonis could have a bit of a size advantage here against a relatively thin front court in the Thunder. I thought the Thunder, whiffed pretty hard, not acquiring any sort of size in the front court. This could make for an interesting setup against Sabonis. Guy is a triple-double threat. The Warriors were able to play him off the floor and really mitigate his ability last year in the playoffs. I don't know if the Thunder SGA is obviously fantastic, but it's a different structure the Thunder offense plays behind. So I'm not sure if this is going to be as much of a gap in the Kings defense. The Kings love to get their shots up. The Thunder, they're more of an interior reliant offense. They are closer to middle of the pack in terms of 3-point attempts. The Kings, the offense has been frenetic. De'Aaron Fox was great in the playoffs last year. I just think that this is a good setup for them to maybe extend the series. I'm not going to call for an outright upset. I just think that with Sabonis and the Thunder's lack of perimeter focus, series could be extended a little bit. So that's just something I'm keeping my eye on if the bracket is set that way. Let's move on to Denver Lakers. You got Denver laying about minus 400 range. I'm using FanDuel, but minus 420. Lakers plus 310 coming back. Nuggets about a 7-point favorite in game 1 on Saturday night. This is a rematch from last year's sweep in the Western Conference Finals. I like Denver in this series. The number has been slowly creeping out on the series spread in terms of minus 1.5 games. I think if you want to be involved in this game, that would be my look. I think Denver exact series 4-1 isn't a terrible look. That's plus 230. I think anything above plus 200 isn't bad. I think that Denver in 5 is probably the most likely outcome, and even in 6 is still in play. I don't really think I don't think the Lakers home court is as meaningful as it would be to swing this series, but I think Denver can make pretty quick work here. There's going to be a lot of talk about, is Denver as good as last year's finals team? I don't know necessarily. I still think they are really good. They have the best player on the planet for my money in Nikola Jokic. And frankly, this is just a really bad matchup for the Lakers. Denver swept the season series, and they did it in a pretty methodical fashion, pretty calculated manner. Lakers hung around. A lot of the games were fairly competitive, but Denver would win by a few possessions, double digits. They would take care of business mainly because of their fourth quarter offense. And frankly, Nikola Jokic, he is the most efficient hub of offense you will find in the NBA, whether it's him scoring around the rim, whether it's him finding open players, whether he's getting to and he's finishing through contact. Denver, to me, just has the Lakers kind of covered. I think the Lakers are pretty good. I think this is a pretty brutal draw for them because I think were they able to draw someone like Minnesota, maybe they could extend their playoff run. I just think Denver has this team covered. I think a big knock on Denver last year before their finals run was, well, the defense wasn't very good. They were 15th in defensive rating last year. They are up to 8th this year. They're actually better on defense while they maintained their top 5 standing in terms of offensive rating. As I grab my computer charger, I apologize. So Denver's defense has gotten better and the offense remains just as good. Yes, they don't have Bruce Brown anymore. And Jeff Green, those guys were key cogs, but I think as long as Jamal Murray's healthy, he's going to be able to shoulder some of the load on the offensive side of the ball. And, you've seen Christian Braun. He has stepped in nicely. Peyton Watson, if he could give some minutes. I just think that the Lakers lack, one, a body to really stick on Jokic. AD has struggled with that. And also, the Lakers, what are they going to try and get into a shot-making contest with the Nuggets? That doesn't seem like that's going to work out for them because we've seen, and just look at anecdotally the play-in game on, what was that, Tuesday night. 3 quarters, Lakers kind of running up and down, looking good, getting clean looks. In the fourth quarter, that game slowed down, and LeBron looked pretty gassed, blew a few layups, definitely did not have that burst to the rim. I know that there's extra time off in the first round relative to when they played last year in the Western Conference Finals, but LeBron's 39. Jokic is in the prime of his career. I'll take Jokic any day of the week, and that's no disrespect to LeBron. So I think that there's, a pretty, a path to efficient offense definitely sides with Denver. Now, you'll say the Lakers have, a very, very slight effective field goal percentage edge on the Nuggets. But again, I think that the quality of shots is going to be there for Denver because Anthony Davis can't guard Nikola Jokic. I remember last year in the playoffs, Rui Hachimura, he tried guarding Jokic, and there was a big hubbub about it, and how Denver won, but the Lakers found out how to guard Jokic. It didn't matter. And AD kind of he was mitigated in the playoffs last year. And if you look at the 3 games he played in, or all 3 games this year against the Nuggets, AD was -17, -11, -11. So AD struggled in this matchup, and now maybe the back spasms flare up or something, but I think this is going to be a real struggle for the Lakers to close the game out against the Nuggets. And, the method for Denver's excellence usually starts with them building an early lead. The bench tries to hang on, and then in the fourth quarter, Jokic closes out. If you look, fourth quarter, just purely fourth quarter, as I pull this up. Where are we? Quarters. In the fourth quarter of this season, Denver has the 3rd best net rating, plus 4.8, tied with the Timberwolves. So tied for second, sorry. The Lakers, 11th, plus 1.2. So they are positive in the fourth quarter, but it's a bit of a drop off. And also, what you see is Denver's defensive rating really takes a step up. Their defense rating is sub 110 in terms of points allowed per 100 possession. That is a net, near 3-point jump in terms of efficiency on defense. So when the game slows down in the fourth quarter, even if it's tight, they know how to generate stops. So listen, the Lakers have plenty of shot makers. I think that the games are going to be competitive. I'm not saying lay Denver in game 1 and that these are going to be blowouts. I just think fourth quarter, it's winning time. I think Denver gets it done. They have the efficiency. They have the depth. And honestly, they have guys to throw at LeBron to slow him down. And I don't think that this is a great series for AD. I mean, listen, if you're going to count on D'Angelo Russell keeping it going, which is very possible, Denver's proven they have the guard play. Russell was played off of the floor last year against Denver. You could throw KCP on him. Christian Braun, again, has thrown some good minutes there off the bench. So I think that, this is even Reggie Jackson. I just think Denver has them covered. I think that they could take care of business ahead of, a long series. I think 5, 6, sure, anything like that. And the Lakers, with more rest, LeBron not dealing with plantar fasciitis this year, maybe this series they get a game, maybe 2, but that's pretty much it. So I like Denver to advance. Suns-Wolves is the next game. I have not believed in Phoenix all year. I still don't. I don't buy that last little 5-game burst from Bradley Beal really turning this thing around. But I also have to admit that this is a pretty brutal matchup for Minnesota. They lost all 3 games this season by 10, 18, and 19. Cat didn't play in the 18-point loss. But, it's like a styles make fights thing. This is what I was alluding to earlier. The Suns, they're going to get to their mid-range. They're going to attack Gobert in the pick and roll. They're going to try and get Booker, Durant, Beal in those mid-range opportunities and just to shoot over the defenders. And does Minnesota have the recourse to beat that? Because you look at how the Suns are going to align themselves. They're going to play Durant at the 4. They're going to play, the 3 guard lineup of Booker, Beal, Grayson Allen, and then Nurkic at the big man spot. So where does Karl Anthony Towns go? Came back from his knee injury, played, I believe it's 2 or 3 games, didn't look great. About 20 minutes. They have Naz Reid off the bench, which is perfectly fine too. Should be 6-man Naz Reid. But where's Cat going to go? Like, are you going to try and stick Cat and Grayson Allen? That's a little weird. I think that this is going to be a really interesting schematic matchup for a great but slightly unproven coach in Chris Finch and an NBA championship winning coach in Frank Vogel. I think that the Suns have underwhelmed this year to a very high degree. But again, this is why like their finals rating, their championship rating has never wavered, because they have the title winning coach. They have Durant. They have Booker. They have the overwhelming talent that's going to keep them afloat. So how does Minnesota win? It's the league's best defense. I think that a lot is going to come down to jump shot variance, because I think Minnesota, what their path is going to be to slow this game down. Hope that Anthony Edwards could raise his level to a certain degree that can outpace them. But it's going to come down to the other side, where the Wolves, it feels like they're fitting a square into a circular hole in terms of their defensive scheme against the Suns team. The Suns are not relatively deep. So if Minnesota is able to dictate, maybe getting to the free throw line at a pretty steady rate, like maybe that's what could turn this game or turn this series or certain games around. But, Minnesota, they got to the free throw line at a top 10 clip. Can you get Phoenix's core lineup off the floor and make it more, instead of Nurkic, it's Drew Eubanks for more, maybe get Bradley Beal off the floor and it becomes, you go deeper and deeper into that Phoenix bench, because Minnesota, they have Mike Conley, who is kind of undersized for this matchup. You have Cat, who I was mentioning, isn't really a good fit for this matchup. It's a bad stylistic matchup. And as the game bogs down, it's going to be like, okay, Ant versus Booker and Durant, who's going to put the ball in the hoop. And I think the longer this series goes, it probably skews more towards Phoenix. But I'm really interested for this one. I don't have a strong betting, take on this one. I think I got to see how Minnesota adjusts. I think Chris Finch, this is going to really, be a lot on him, how he's going to manage this matchup. But, probably lean towards the Suns, to be honest, just in terms of this matchup. But Minnesota winning would not shock me at all. The team has been great all year. I think, they have the talent to go toe to toe. It's just the high end talent. Can it be reached in the ceiling? Definite concerns for Minnesota, in my opinion. Clippers Mavs, really, really, high level matchup, but big question is going to be around Kawhi. Hasn't played since March 31st with a knee injury. And if you go back like 2 years now, Kawhi against Utah tore his ACL, I think it was torn ACL. One of them was a torn ACL and the other was another knee injury. But they don't say anything. He's just out. And then they say, like, towards the end of the Phoenix series that they eventually get bounced and, oh, yeah, it's serious injury. He's done for the year. Okay. And then you get to last year, goes nuts in game 1. They beat Phoenix, but then he has another, season-ending injury, and the Clippers are just done, and they don't even announce it for a few games. So Clippers not announcing anything. We don't know anything about his injury. We don't know if he's going to play in game 1 on Sunday. So to me, this is like, I have zero interest in betting it. I got to see it, because if the Clippers have Kawhi at full strength, which I think is probably skewing towards no, then I would say, great, like, let's go. I'm in on the Clippers. I think that they have the roster to slow down Dallas, to throw bodies at Luka. They have the size, the wing advantage as well to really generate sound buckets, and they could play some of the Mavericks big men off the floor. But we don't know if Kawhi's healthy. Well, is Kawhi fully out? Because then I struggle to see how the Clippers keep up against, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and all those, and this, humming offense and a defense that's also rounding into form with some of their deadline moves. Well, I don't know if he's going to play. So to me, this is like, you got to just sit it out and wait. I don't think, first of all, it's line, like, you're not getting some crazy payout. I mean, if you have an opinion on if Kawhi is going to play, maybe go for Dallas alts, like Dallas minus 2.5 games. You could probably get a nice payout on that. Dallas alt spread. I am Mavericks minus 2.5 plus 265. Dallas sweep plus 610. Maybe that's the method you want to go on. That, like, I don't really know what Kawhi's situation is going to be. To me, it's not like a great betting opportunity. And I think it's one where you're going to have to see the state of Kawhi before, you really even get into this. I will say on Dallas, they did close the season at like a torrid rate. Dallas, they finished the season winning. So they benched everyone for the last 2 games. So I'll remove those 2, but 16 of 18, 16 of 20, if you want to include those last 2 games. But if you dig a little bit deeper, Dallas beat one team that was a top 6 seed in either conference in those 18 games. So Dallas, they did what they had to do. They beat up on the bad teams, the mediocre teams. They did all that was necessary, but they didn't beat in on the high end team. So, is this a little smoke and mirrors that this Dallas team has turned such a corner? Listen, any numbers I say when you win 16 of 20, they're going to say that you put up some gaudy numbers. The team closed 7th in defensive rating since March 1st. They were surprisingly 14th in offensive rating since March 1st, but overall net rating, this graded out as a top 10 offense, top 10 team, sorry. I'm not buying into the Mavericks hype just yet, but if it was a healthy Kawhi, I would be in on the Clippers because I do think that some of these matchups, you can kind of exploit some of Dallas's lack of point of attack defense, where Paul George could really get going in this series. I think even James Harden as a facilitator could generate sound looks for Los Angeles, but no Kawhi, the game is just a total stay away. But big picture, like, I'm not rushing to back Dallas to go on some run. I'm not as into. I know that they're the sexy pick. I'm not as into it. I think that more than anything, they're probably at a coaching disadvantage. I'm not a big fan of Jason Kidd as a playoff coach. You go back to their Western Conference Finals run, beat Utah, which was actually more Jalen Brunson than anything when they were on their way out. And then they beat Phoenix when they just folded like a sack of bricks, and they got smoked by Golden State. So it's not like there's a ton of playoff success here. Luke is amazing. I'm not doubting him, but I'm not buying into like Dallas futures or anything like that. So we'll see. We'll see if the Clippers can get a healthy Kawhi. I mean, if Kawhi plays in game 1 and he looks right, like, I'm probably going to start betting Clippers to win that series. That's my point of attack. Next up, let's do Knicks Sixers. I whiffed. I was saying I thought that the Knicks had to be favored in this series. I thought pretty aggressively, given the questions around Embiid and home court. I was way wrong. Sixers favored against the Knicks. Listen, are you buying into you're getting a healthy Joel Embiid that's going to be able to dominate the series? Because Embiid healthy is the best player in the series, the best player in a lot of series. But if Embiid's going to look like how he did in the playing game, where he's really lumbering, he's really struggling to move around, and then he kind of guts it out at the end, and credit to him, that's not typically what Embiid has done in the past, then Philly should be favored. But if he's going to be a shell of himself, then the Knicks have to be favored given the play of Jalen Brunson, given they have home court, and also just further down the line, this Knicks team, for the most part, they have some playoff pedigree. Tyrese Maxey, this is his first, I guess, let me backphrase. A big swing part of this series for Philly is Tyrese Maxey going to realize his ceiling as a true second fiddle to Joel Embiid? I love Maxey. I think he's great, but listen. This is his first run at it. This is his first time really being the lead ball handler of a playoff team. Is he going to live up to it? He's a bit sloppy in the playing game against the Heat. How's that going to go against the Knicks? A really physical defense that has switchable wings that can make life difficult for Maxey. You look down the roster, who's going to stay in front of Jalen Brunson for Philly? I imagine Kyle Lowry takes the first crack at it. We'll see if he can hold up. I mean, he's in his late 30s at this point. Is he going to be able to really put together a 6-7 game run of sticking to, in my opinion, a first team All NBA guard this year? I don't know. If Embiid gets a favorable whistle, that's going to be massive. If you could get Mitch, Rob, Isaiah Hartenstein, if you get those guys into foul trouble, that can maybe tip things your way. But again, I think it's pretty interesting that the Knicks are dogs in the series, given everything. This is a lot of again, it's like that regular season anchor that Philly was dominant with Embiid on the floor. They closed winning now 9 straight. Didn't cover, so covered 8 of 9 of those games. But if you watch the games, though, you know that Embiid, whether he's not healthy or he's just exhausted because he hasn't played himself in this shape, it's probably a mix of both. Is he going to hold up over a 7-game series? I think it's a fair question. I wonder, Tibbs has some options in this series of how he could deploy the defense. There are spots for you to hide Jalen Brunson against this Philly rotation. Like if Tobias Harris is going to continue to be an absolute joke of a player, hide him there. I know Nick Batum just turned into Michael Jordan, but do you hide him there? I don't think you expect that to happen more than once in a series. So I think you can maybe hide Brunson places, or you just stick him on Lowry and say we don't really trust Kyle Lowry to beat us, even though he had a few moments against the Knicks last year in the playoffs. Nick Nurse, I give him the coaching edge over Tibbs. We'll see if he could get creative. I mean, this is a championship-winning coach. Ultimately, I disagree that the Sixers are favored. We'll see how it goes. I'm not rushing to lay it because there is some untapped potential with the Sixers. I have some like long shot futures on the Sixers, and watching that play-in game did not excite me for the prospects of a deep playoff run. Just watching the Sixers, it looked like this team's kind of on fumes. But we shall see. That series, I'm sure, is going to be full of intrigue. Next up, Magic Cavs. This one's going to be gross. Orlando, who made me a lot of money in the regular season, they break through their first time. The Cavs close the season probably as bad as you could. I don't have a strong opinion. I know there's a lot of questions. I think unders in this series are probably going to be good. Totals 206.5 in game 1. I think you're going to see it keep going down. I just think that both these teams are destined to keep kind of banging their head against the wall, really slow, really grind it out. I'm sorry, total 208 in the game 1 matchup. I like the under 208 there. I'm going to be targeting unders. This is a Magic team that is elite on defense. Jamal Mosley's built a top 3 defense with one of the youngest rosters in the NBA. The issue is a lot of their offense has really stagnated. A lot of it is just Paolo Banchero trying to just, getting the grenade late in the shot clock and trying to create. The offense is 22nd in points per 100 possessions. So we know what Orlando wants to do. They're big, they're physical. They have a bulldog and Jalen Suggs that's going to run around with the likes of Mitchell and Garland, but they don't generate sound looks. And while you may not like the Cavs as a contender or something, or they're banged up, still a top 10 defense. And they were even better. This is a team with 2 big men down low and Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, solid wing defense as well. I just think this is going to be like a smash mouth kind of series, real ugly. And again, does that maybe give Orlando a path to victory if Cleveland can't pull away from them? Maybe. I just think when push comes to shove, even a little banged up, Donovan Mitchell probably has the pedigree to navigate Orlando, even if it's ugly. So I'm not rushing to take Orlando at this cheap price. I would have liked to, over 2-1, but I do think unders are going to be my target in this game. I think something to keep an eye on in this series will be rebounding props, and there's going to be a lot of bricks, but also these are 2 teams with a lot of big men, but also, both intent on rebounding, especially Orlando. Orlando's top 5 in rebounding percentage. I would say maybe so. Wendell Carter is a key guy for them, but he's been in and out of the lineup. Hasn't injuries left and right. Goga Bataze's taking a spot at times. Paolo, of course. So maybe Magic rebounding props are going to be a look throughout the series. I think Orlando, they're going to try and put an emphasis on we want to possess the basketball. We want to have as much, win the shot volume battle, try and out physical Cleveland and maybe push them around, similar to how the Knicks did it to Cleveland last year in the postseason. So I think that's an interesting look. Again, rebounding props on the Magic. Overall, real grimy series. You know, every year there is one. This is the guaranteed NBA TV one. So, yeah. So I don't expect many of the casuals to be tuning into this one. And from a big picture perspective, like this is just a walkover for Boston. I'm now with Jimmy Butler hurt for the 8 seed playing game. Even if Miami gets in, Boston walkover, and then Boston's probably going to roll over either of these teams. So Boston, I mean, is getting as like a red carpet to the Eastern Conference Finals. So it's kind of tough to make a contrarian opinion on like Eastern Conference Finals futures, given the state of the conference. To be honest with you, last one, Bucks Pacers. The number okay, so let's start. Giannis out game 1. We don't know how long. Calf strain. To me, I thought it was worse. I thought he popped his Achilles. We'll see. Definite fear there that he could pop his Achilles if he comes back too soon. So I would say soonest game 3. Bucks probably hope for a split at home and then, hope to just drag this series out. The number has been bet into a place that I'm not going to say, like, go bet this. But so you got Indiana is minus 102, Milwaukee's minus 120. So Milwaukee small favorite. If you like Indiana, I would say probably go like the alternate route. Take Indiana minus 1.5 games at a plus price that isn't being shown here. You can only get plus 1.5, but like 2-1 minus 1.5. Maybe that's your route. If you don't really buy the Giannis is coming back. If you don't buy the Bucks in general, I don't buy the Bucks in general. So I still think Indiana is going to win this series, even if Giannis comes back at a slightly less than 100%. Indiana won 4 of the 5 matchups they played in the in-season tournament. And in one of those games, Giannis, in the one game the Bucks won, Giannis had 64. So that's pretty important when you're talking about, can this team, are there other avenues for Milwaukee to keep up? So we'll see how this goes. I just think Indiana, while there are, so before that, a lot has changed for both these teams during the season. The Bucks fired their coach. Indiana got Pascal Siakam. There's a lot of, so there's a lot of moving parts given when these teams played earlier in the season. That being said, Indiana, their offensive structure and their ability to space the floor at all times is going to put a lot of pressure on Milwaukee's drop coverage defense. So with Brook Lopez, first of all, Brook Lopez really leans on Giannis to make that defense as good as it should be. But Brook Lopez plays drop coverage. So that's going to mean Tyrese Halliburton's going to get his screen. He's going to put this, he's going to try and get downhill, initiate with Brook Lopez. And then you could have someone like Miles Turner or Obi Toppin spaced out on the floor to get pretty clean looks from beyond the arc. Indiana, this is the second best offense in the entire NBA. Now, will that translate to the NBA? Are they going to be as efficient? Probably not, because the game's going to slow down and Indiana's a little bit more finesse. But there's no denying that if this becomes like a shot-making battle, like, give me Indiana all day. You look at, where are we here? Here we go. Okay, Indiana. And they have 4 guys in their rotation shooting above 40% from 3. That's Jalen Smith, Aaron Nesmith, TJ McConnell, Obi Toppin. I'm overlooking Jarace Walker. Siakam shooting 38%. Halliburton himself is a 36% three-point shooter. Miles Turner's 35%. Andrew Nembhard's 35%. I mean, these guys can shoot the shit out of the ball. I mean, Milwaukee, first of all, let's just look at it like point blank. Milwaukee's defense this year is 19th in points allowed per 100 possessions. I just mentioned Indiana's second in points scored per 100 possessions. Massive mismatch there. So Milwaukee, I think that their only path forward, especially with Giannis banged up, is they're going to need Dame Lillard to really cook in this series. And I don't see a world where Milwaukee's defense is just shutting down Indiana. It's just not happening. I think that they're desperately going to miss Drew Holiday, and this is why I was concerned about the Dame Lillard trade from the jump. They sacrificed their best point of attack defender and really their only plus point of attack defender to get Dame Lillard to offset some of their late game meltdowns because Giannis is a bit of an overrated late game player. Okay. But now you're in the situation where I don't even know if it's going to matter because Indiana, their defense has been trending up all year. They've been getting better and better. Milwaukee's been going the wrong way since they got Doc Rivers. So, let's just pull up here. Let's go since the All-Star break. Doc came around right before then. Siakam fully integrated. Okay, since the All-Star break, Indiana and Milwaukee have essentially the same defensive rating. Milwaukee 17th and Indiana is 18th. So both below average defenses. But the offense is where you see a big gap. Indiana has maintained their spot a second on offense. Milwaukee is 13th in offensive rating. So you've seen a pretty seismic gap between these two teams. Overall, net rating wise, Indiana's 10th, Milwaukee's 11th. These two teams are pretty similar. And you got that initial open where Milwaukee was a massive favorite because it makes sense. We were talking about at the beginning. Home court, you got Giannis, NBA champion. Dame Lillard has a lot of pedigree. This is Tyrese Halliburton's first go in the playoffs. This Pacers team first real run at it. I agree. But now when you pour in the other factors where Giannis, we don't even know how much he's going to play. The fact that Milwaukee's been terrible, or terrible is a strong word, overrated and far below their expectation, you end up with a pick'em here. And I like Indiana. I think that, especially when you look at who's going to make adjustments, give me Rick Carlisle over Doc Rivers all day. So I like the Pacers. I think alternate's probably your best bang for your buck at this point. But I like the Pacers quite a bit here. And honestly, like I was looking, I don't know if this market is like available, but like Pacers to go to the conference finals is something like I'm not going to say that they'll beat Boston, but if you look at who they're playing, Embiid didn't play in some of them, but the Pacers won the season series against Philly. And Embiid, we don't even know what's up with him. They won the season series against the Knicks. They, like I mentioned, won the season series against the Bucks. So can the Pacers win these two series and end up as like that somewhat surprising Eastern Conference Finals team? I think those four teams are much closer together than the odds may indicate. Again, I'm not advocating that they beat Boston, but if you look at the Eastern Conference odds, you got Boston minus 220, Milwaukee 8-1, Philly plus 850, Knicks 11-1, Cavs 16-1, Pacers 24-1. And then obviously a drop off and you get the Magic, the Heat, and the Bulls. Like 24-1, I don't even know if it's hedgeable. I'm just thinking out loud here, but like if I could get like to make the conference finals or something like that, or maybe it is just take a flyer on the Pacers to go to the Eastern Conference Finals and hope that maybe they extend that series long enough that I could get some equity out of it. I just think it's an interesting look, just given how the bracket broke. So that's how I'll leave this first round preview. We'll see if we do a second round preview. Maybe I'll have a guest on for it. But want to get on here. I skipped last week with the Masters and stuff. So I thought I'd come on, talk some hoop, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll come on midweek and we'll do like a little midweek like player prop update or something like that. But until then, you can find all the bets on my bet stamp at RW33, my Twitter at Reed Wallach. Thank you all for listening. As always, please like, subscribe, 5 stars. Tweet me if you like it. Tweet me if you hate it. And I'll talk to you guys next week.